Like for real.
Oh, glory! Hallelujah! Woo, wonderful Jesus. Woo, wonderful God.
So it's kind of like
Going
somewhere you've never been before,
but
but you plug it into your GPS,
yes.
and you just have to trust your GPS to get you there. That's this place we going. I can't tell you what it's like. Because I've never been there. But I can't wait till I get there. For me, the way I read through the Bible, and we ain't gonna shout this morning. Just hope y'all don't go to sleep because we go. But the way I read the Bible is, I read the New Testament, and then I come back and read the Old Testament. That's the easiest way for me, because trying to start at Genesis, I'm gonna read the Bible through. You get somewhere in there and you just kind of. So for me, help me please, Jesus. So I read the New Testament, and then when you go back and read the Old Testament, it's like, oh, that's what the New Testament was making a reference to. You get more of an understanding. So I just finished reading the Bible through, and in the Bible you have the major prophets, then you have the minor prophets, and I was reading the Zephaniah and all that stuff. It was like a lot of this, I knew it was a message in it, but I didn't fully understand it. But I knew they were speaking prophetically, and I was like, God, I'd really like to have more of an understanding. I understood some, and so I do a lot of reading, and we went to the Southwest Believers Convention, and they gave out these books, the Blood Moon, and I had it in my stack to read, and I felt impressed to pick this book up and start reading it. And so in this, the insight has really been amazing. It's Blood Moons Decoding the Imminent Heavenly Signs by Mark Biltz. So let's go to Genesis, the 14th chapter. And, sometime in reading this, we talk about having to understand we're in a Western culture, and the Bible was written in a different time, in a different culture. So some things we miss or don't quite make sense because of the times that we live in. So Genesis, the first chapter and the 14th verse, what does it say?
14th chapter.
Genesis 1 and 14.
Oh. And
Somebody.
And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years.
So when we read that, God put the lights in the sky, and we kind of think, because the earth turns at different seasons, and so we read that and we kind of tend to think the seasons, spring, summer, winter, and fall, but there's more to it than that. So and you know, the Bible talk about the blood moons, and there's a whole lot going on. We've been having eclipses and all. So there's things going on in the sky that God has given us signs, but because we don't have a full understanding, some things we're missing out on. So let's go over to Exodus. And I'm going to try to not get deep. I can only get so deep because my mind's not that deep. And one time we had a couple that said we going somewhere else because we need somebody to teach deep. And went over to another church, and that pastor that was so deep ended up being an embarrassment to Tulsa and pastors with his deep self. So I was like, now I can get deep. So I was like, I can get deep. So I decided to get deep. And I looked up, and half the people was nodding off. So I said, So Exodus, the 12th chapter, it says, Now the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be your beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak to the congregations of Israel, saying, On the 10th of this month, every man shall take for himself a lamb according to the house of his father, a lamb for a household. And if the household is too small for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his house, take it according to the number of the persons. According to each man's need, you shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You may take it from the sheep or from the goats. Now you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. Then the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it at twilight. And they shall take some of the blood and put it on the two doorposts on the lintel of the houses where they may eat it. Then they shall eat the flesh on that night, roasted with fire, with unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Do not eat it raw, nor boil it with the water, but roast it in fire, its head and its legs and its entrails. You shall let none of it remain until morning, and what remain of it until morning you shall burn with fire. And thus you shall eat it, with a belt on your waist, your sandals on your feet, with the staff in your hand. So shall ye eat in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. So this is when the Passover was instituted. And what the Passover done is it brought change for the children of Israel. 12 says, For I will pass through the land of Egypt on that night, and will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. Now here we go, 13. Now the blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are, and when I see the blood, I will pass over, and the plague shall not be on you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. So this day shall be to you a memorial, and you shall keep it as a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. You shall keep it as a feast by an everlasting ordinance. What does that mean? Forever. Sometimes, has anybody talked to someone about being a Christian, and they brought up the horrible past of Christianity? Some of us don't know about. Christians have a bad name in history. We kill people. So there was a lot that happened, and you can get into it. You can see where anti-Semitic attitude come in. Calendars were changed. Who was it? Constantine was the first Roman Christian. Is that right? I'm already getting too deep for some of y'all. And so a lot of things was changed, right? Okay, so, and I'm only going so far this morning, but God is really dealing with me. The Bible says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
Yes.
And sometimes what we don't know can hurt you. So let's go to Matthew, the 27th chapter. And the 45th verse. Now, when was Jesus crucified? What was going on at this time?
Passover.
The Passover. All right. Everybody, we on the same page there?
Yes.
The time that Jesus was crucified was at the time of Passover. All right, so Matthew 27 and 45, this is when Christ is being crucified. It says, now from the 6th hour until the 9th hour, there was darkness over all the land. So we're going to make this a class. We're going to be interactive. So with the Jewish day, what time did the day start?
6 o'clock.
Y'all smart. All right, so their day started at 6 o'clock, right? So this says, so from the 6th hour, what's 6 plus 6?
12.
So this is saying from 12 noon to the 9th hour, what's 6 plus 9? It's 15, right?
Yes.
And we convert it to the 12 hour, what is, so it's 12 to what? So it's saying from 12 noon to 3 p.m., the 6th hour until the 9th hour, it was darkness. God was speaking in this, back in Genesis, it said the light will be for times and seasons. We got the time, but so sometimes God is speaking to us through seasons.
Yeah.
But we thought it was spring, summer. Some of y'all, I see light bulbs coming on. What was going on when Jesus was being crucified? It was the time of
Passover. Jesus.
All right, so that was divine darkness. So how many people are in the world? That was smart. 7 billion. Now, we all speak different languages, right? But God speaks in a language where we all can see him speak and know what he's saying, even though we all speak a different language. Okay, so now the Passover was instituted, we're saying probably about 1,500 years before Christ came. What a coincidence. The Passover is going on for 1,500 years, and all of a sudden, when it's time for Christ to die, it's the time of
Passover.
Well, y'all smart. Need to take y'all on the road with me. Is this making sense?
Yes.
So, let me go back to Genesis. I want us. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide day from night, and let them be for signs and seasons. It's interesting when Jesus talked about, you know not the day or time of my coming, he wasn't talking to church people. we should know.
That's right.
And if we get into it, we can understand a lot of stuff that goes on. It coordinates with what's going on in the sky.
Yes, it does.
So I'm not getting off, but there are some things we've been missing that we just hadn't known about.
Yes. That's good.
So it says, so he, from the 6th hour to the 9th hour, there was darkness. And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is, my God, why have you forsaken me? Some of those who were there said, when they heard it, said, this man is calling for Elijah. Immediately one took and ran and took a sponge filled with sour wine and put it on a reed and offered it to him to drink. The rest said, let him alone. Let's see if Elijah will come save him. And then it says, then Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. And behold, the veil in the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth quaked, and rocks were split. Let's go over to Mark chapter 15. Put my holder there. Mark 15 and 21. Says, and they compelled a certain man, Simon of Cyrenium, the father of Alexander and Rufus, as he was coming out of the country and passing by, to bear his cross. And they brought him to a place, Golgotha, which is translated place of skull. And they gave him wine mingled with myrrh to drink, but he did not drink it. And they crucified him, and they divided his garments, casting lots for them to determine what every man should take. Now this was the 3rd hour that they crucified him. Again, 9 o'clock in the morning. Now, it's interesting, while Jesus was being crucified, what was happening at the temple? The lamb. The lamb was being, I see light bulbs popping on. He was the Lamb of God. At the same time, the Lamb of God was being offered at the temple, the Passover lamb was being offered. At the same time, Jesus was being bound to the cross. The Passover lamb was being bound to be killed. What's the coincidence? 1,500 years. And it happened at the exact same time. All right, so now we read a lot of time in the Bible. Job, when his children died, what did he do? He rent his clothes. Now, in reading this, it's more than just taking your shirt and ripping it. You rent it across your heart to show pain. So it wasn't just, I'm the Incredible Hulk, I'm going to take my... It rent to show pain. Let's go back to Matthew. Matthew 27 and 51. What does it say?
And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom, and the earth did quake, and the rocks ran.
That was God showing his pain. The veil was rent, top to bottom, across the protected place, Is this making sense? Am I too deep? So, can we see that sometimes we read and sometimes we miss because we don't have a full understanding? And we don't know what we don't know.
That's right.
But I just finished reading the Bible and I was like, God, I'd like to know more about what I'm reading. I want to read with a better understanding. And he prompted me, pick this book up and start reading. Now, another interesting point. So this at this time of Passover, Jews came from all over, everywhere, right? So Josephus, he's a historian. Anybody familiar with Josephus? He's a historian. So he estimated that it was probably 2 to 2 million people coming here for this mass emergence. But that also explains why there was no room in the inn.
Yeah.
Because you had all these people. That's why it was no room anywhere, because we got 2 million people just came to town. Now, something that was mentioned in the book, though, while they were doing the sacrifice, you got all these people, and part of what they would do at the sacrifices, they would sing hymns. So you got 2 million people singing a hymn. So while Jesus was out there on the cross, he could hear. Is this good stuff or what? So, Mark 15 and 21. It says, now it was the 3rd hour they crucified him. So, 6 plus 3 is how many? 9. So it was 9 o'clock. Let's go over to, and another side note, so from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. was also the time of the evening sacrifice. That's when it was darkness. Acts 3 and 1. It says, now Peter and John went up together to the temple at the hour of prayer, which is the 9th hour. So, the 9th hour is what time? 3 p.m. But the 9th hour is also the time of the evening sacrifice. So it started at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it ended at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So, when it was time for the evening sacrifice to die, that's when Jesus cried out, my God, it was, boy, that's a big coincidence, isn't it? At the very time of the Passover, and this is where we have to get some peace. When my steps are ordered by God, I don't have any. Man, when we really know my steps, even the time of Jesus dying, it wasn't up to the Romans. It was ordained by God. So anything that I go through, as long as I'm doing right, my steps are ordered by God. Even if it's something I don't like, it's ordained by God. And if it's ordained by God, guess what? I'm coming out okay. Now, we're not going to get excited. So 9 o'clock was the evening time of prayer, but it was the time of sacrifice. And that's the time that Jesus gave up the ghost. The lamb at Passover.
That's deep.
It's good, Pastor.
So let's go. Let's go to. It's a couple of things I want us to look at, and boy, this went fast. Let me wrap up. Let's go to Exodus. We'll go back to Exodus 12 where we started. Exodus 12 and 14 says, "So this day shall be to you a memorial, and you shall keep it as a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. You shall keep it as a feast by an everlasting ordinance." Let's go to Exodus 29 and 42. It says, "This shall be a continual burnt offering throughout your generations at the door of the tabernacle of meetings before the Lord, where I will meet you and speak with you. It shall be a continual offering for how long?
Throughout your generations.
Throughout your generations." Last one, let's go to 30 and 8. And when Aaron lights the lamp at twilight, he shall burn incense on a perpetual incense before the Lord. How long?
Throughout your generations.
So we're not switching into something real deep and spooky and all of that. But can we see there's some things we've been missing? There's some dates and times that's important to God. And we've been instructed to follow it throughout the generations. Again, we're not getting all weird. And, because his name ain't Jesus. What's his name? Yeshua. Yeah. So, but we not going, don't say Jesus, say when we were on 15th Street, I think we had been pastoring, how long? 2 years maybe? So probably 11 years ago, it was a guy came in the church, and we knew it was something really unique about him. And Lisa and I wondered, is this an angel in a person's body? Well, turns out he's not, but we might talk once a year maybe. And he's been talking to me, well, even then, because he came actually at Easter, wasn't it? It was Easter Sunday he came. It was Easter Sunday he showed up. And so last year he was coming for Easter, but it worked where his job, he couldn't get off or something. And so he contacted me and said he might be able to come this year around one of the holy holidays. But what was unique, my mind wasn't open before now.
Yeah.
Because he would talk about some of the stuff, but I was like, yeah, we not into all that stuff. That's too deep. But it's interesting, he wasn't able to come, but he had sent me a text message that looked like he'll be able to come. But there's some things that God is going to open up.
Right.
And there's a blessing with being on God's calendar.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Amen.
So even in the church, you can just feel a shift And you can feel God doing a new thing.
Yeah. Amen.
See, Passover represented a new thing.
That's right.
I've been living in this mess for 400 years, but guess what? It's Passover time.
Amen.
Things that used to hold me down, guess what?
That's right.
Passover time.
It's Passover time. When I see the blood, I'll pass over.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
Come on.
Amen.
Thank you, Jesus. Amen.
Y'all, we're about to
That's
experience
right. That's right.
some blessings that's been held up, some miracles that's been on hold.
All right.
And this is what I say about something that's on hold. It's just like if a faucet is dripping. I think about this all the time. If a faucet is dripping, you can put your finger over it and stop the water.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But sooner or later, somebody say sooner or later. Sooner or later, see, the faucet never stopped dripping. It just wasn't seen.
That's right.
But when you move your finger, all that stuff that's been held up, it's got to come out. Can I tell you there's some blessings that's been held up? The devil come and he held up some stuff. But can I tell you, sooner or later, what's been held up has got to come forth. Say, my blessing has got to come forth. My healing has got to come forth. My money has got to come forth. It's got to come forth. Because the thing is passing over. Passover represents change. Passover represents newness. What used to hold me down, what used to hold me back,